Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of The Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Cooper, and I am so glad to be back. It feels like it's been so long since I've done an episode, but really, I haven't even missed a week. I was just out of town last week, so I had to film early, so it feels like it's been longer. But so glad to be back and filming on time today. Before we get started, I wanted to show you guys this really cool thing that I made of pipe cleaners. I'm sure you've seen it on TikTok if you have it, but they're pipe cleaner flowers. It took so much time, but I had a blast making them. So I just wanted to show you guys that I spent pretty much my whole day yesterday working on those. So very time consuming, but it was very relaxing to work on them. Anyways, with that being said, I'm going to get right into it. Today, I'm going to be talking about my history with playing sports. And with that, I think sports and food kind of intertwine. I'll say sports / working out. Same thing. But with working out or doing sports, you have to be eating. So those things go hand in hand. So when I'm talking about my journey with sports, a lot of things with eating issues are going to come up. But I'm going to talk through it, and I'm going to explain to you guys the journey that I took to get where I am today. And I believe that every part in my journey was necessary to leading me where I am now. And I am so grateful to be in the position I am now, feeling confident in who I am, being in a good place with working out and eating. And I just want to let you guys know that. So to start it off, I want to take it back to very early on in my life. When I was about 6 years old, my parents put me in softball. I played softball very, very consistently from then on for the next 8 years. And it started off as something that I really, really enjoyed. It was my favorite thing to do. And I met a lot of my best friends through the sport. I was with them all the time. I played tournaments with them pretty much every weekend, had practice 2 to 3 times a week. So I saw them a lot. And it was fun, but something that wasn't fun was the pressure that the sport brought to me. I ended up developing this pressure at a very young age. You know, even when I was first starting, I had this pressure to get on base, to do perfectly, to never make mistakes. And ultimately, if you play baseball or softball, you know it's a failure sport. You know, everyone makes mistakes. It's how it goes. And I'm sure that's for a lot of other sports as well. But it's a hard sport, and I think that stress developed over time, and over time it just got so much worse to the point that I was no longer having fun doing the sport. I felt anxious every time I would go up to the plate. I felt not confident in my abilities, and it became miserable for me, and it wasn't my happy place anymore. And I later on ended up quitting the sport. After talking to my parents about it, it just wasn't worth it to go on anymore because of that stress. The stress was greater than my happiness that I got from the sport on the good days. So I didn't continue doing it anymore. But before I ended up quitting, I was getting these pretty bad headaches, and I was getting them so often, and they were very bad, and it was hard on me. And my dad, being a doctor who believes in health and wellness, you know, he talked to me about maybe starting to run to see if that would help my headaches. And so I started at the age of 12. So I had been playing softball for 6 years at this point. At the age of 12, I started going outside in our neighborhood and just running from mailbox to mailbox, and then eventually a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. And I ended up developing this love for running, and it was so different for me than softball. And I was doing these things at the same time, and it was a lot. But I realized that running didn't bring the same stress to me that softball did because running was new. I didn't have these expectations on myself. I didn't have, the pressure of people watching me. It was just me, or it was me and my dad running together. It was fun for me, and it was stress relieving, and ultimately it helped my headaches. And I truly believe that everyone can enjoy running if they have the right mindset. Because if you go into running thinking that it's a punishment, then you're going to view it as a punishment and you're going to hate every second of it. But when you go into it as this is fun and this is stress relieving and I need to get some steam off, everyone can enjoy it, and you don't have to run at a sprinting speed. You can be jogging. You can be barely even speed walking, but it's the movement that makes a difference. And I truly believe that for a lot of people struggling with mental health. Of course, working out is not going to solve all your problems. It's just not. A lot of times therapy and sometimes even medicine are needed, but I do believe that working out and being active can help tremendously. So anyways, my love for running increased and I started working out and running with my dad. And it was a really fun time. I truly loved what I was doing, and it was something that didn't bring me stress. And it started off as something so simple, and I was in it for the right reasons, and it was good. But then I went down a darker path, and I became obsessed. I became obsessed with the times that I was running. I became obsessed with how I looked because of this running. I became obsessed with it all, and that led me down a very, very dark path. And I pray that none of you guys watching this have to go down that path, or if you have gone down that path, I pray that you don't ever look back once you've gotten out of it. I just got so obsessed, and I thought that in order to run faster, I had to be skinnier. I had to eat less. And I think that's a misconception a lot, especially on the internet. It's these runners and they're promoting not eating at all, and they're underfueling, and they put it out online, and so then other people see that and think that's normal. And that was what happened to me. And I thought, well, if I stop eating, if I eat less, only eat the bare minimum for survival, then I'll be able to run faster, I'll be better. And so I did that. I stopped eating enough, and I was still training extremely hard, and I was running fast on every single one of my runs. I didn't take easy runs. Those were not a thing for me. And I ended up losing all of my energy for life. I didn't have happiness. I didn't have joy. It was the only thing I have energy for is to run. And then right as I get home, I need to go to sleep. And the hunger got so bad for me that I literally would just sleep. I would come home from school, I would be hungry, but the only way to silence the hunger was for me to sleep. And that is a very, very dangerous path to go on. But it got deeper and deeper, and right before I ended up officially quitting softball, which was about 2 years later, my softball uniform was literally, I was drowning in it. It was something that was tight on me, as it is supposed to be in softball. You're supposed to have a tighter fit. Became something that was so big on me because I had lost so much weight. I was skin and bones, and when I look at pictures of myself from that time, I just feel so sorry for myself. I feel so sorry for the girl, who thought that she needed to be skinnier to be loved, to be good at something, it's a different headspace. And it's crazy because your brain convinces you of all of these things that are completely false. Your brain convinces you that you're not worthy of love unless you take up less space, unless you're faster, unless you're better, unless you're skinnier, unless you look better. And it's not true. And I ended up quitting softball, and I continued to run, and I developed this eating disorder for probably a year to a year and a half. I don't know the exact times, but I didn't talk about it to anyone. And the signs were there, of course. And, everyone around me can see it. When someone is dealing with something like that, oftentimes you can see. Eventually, it got to a point where I realized that I needed help. And I couldn't do it alone anymore because it was either I ask for help and get better, or I continue down the path and go to a hospital, maybe even die. And it really is that deep. You cannot survive without food, and especially if you are working out, on top of it, you need to be eating food. You need to be fueling yourself for those things. And I know that social media often says differently, but in order to run fast times, in order to play well in your sport, in order to accomplish the goals that you've set for yourself, you have to eat more. You need to eat enough to where you can do those things and not be completely exhausted and taken out. Not eating and not fueling yourself leads to a higher chance of you getting sick. It leads to more fatigue. You aren't able to recover as quickly. So when social media tells us you need to be skinnier, the opposite is actually true. You need to be eating more. You need to have some muscle on you so that you can do those things that you want to do in your life. And so I asked for help. I realized that I had a big problem, and I realized I could not do it myself, and I asked for help. I told my dad, and I was scared. I was scared to ask for help, of course. It's scary, but ultimately I think it was one of the best choices I've ever made in my life. It was so life-changing for me to ask for help, and I truly don't know where I would be if I didn't ask for help. And I've said this in some other episodes, but you are strong if you are able to ask for help. Asking for help is a sign of courage, not of weakness. And when I asked for help from my dad, my sister, and my therapist, I was met with so much love and so much support, and they rallied around me and they dug me out of this hole that I was stuck in. And not only did they help dig me out, but I wanted that for myself. I wanted to get out myself. And I think that's so important to realize. If someone in your life is going through something like that, if you're witnessing someone going through an eating disorder, going through something like that, all you can do is support them. You have to wait until they are ready to ask for help. Because, of course, my dad saw the signs that I was going through something, My collarbones were sticking out. Of course, it was obvious, but I wasn't ready to ask for help until I did. And I just encourage you to be patient if someone in your life is going through that. Be patient until that person asks for help, and be supportive when they do ask for help. And just be so encouraging and stand by them. Asking for help is not an easy thing, but it's worth it. And the right support around us is so, so important. So when I asked for help, I was met with so much love, encouragement, and support. And I ended up starting this app with my therapist, and I would track the food I was eating so that she could keep me accountable and she could encourage me if I ended up eating a full meal, or, I had an extra snack, or I had a dessert that day. And if it looked like I wasn't eating enough that day, she could say, hey, how about we add this? And she was so gentle with me. And that was exactly the love I needed. I needed someone to say, I love you through this. I love you even through this hard time. And that was the support I got. And I ended up getting out of this dark hole that I had gotten trapped in for that year to year and a half of my life. And my energy started coming back. I started to feel happiness, and I started to have energy beyond just running, beyond just doing the bare minimum, right? I wanted to do fun things. I wanted to hang out with my family. I wanted to go outside. I wanted to go see my friends, go to birthday parties. And it was so freeing for me to have that. It was so freeing for me to feel that zest for life again. Feel the desire to actually live my life again instead of just survive. There's a huge difference between living and surviving. Surviving is you don't have the energy to do anything more than wake up, go through your day, sleep. Living is, I want to hang out with my friends today. I want to hang out with my family. I want to make the most of my time while I have it. And I began living. And it was so important for me. And if you're not living right now, I encourage you, like, ask for help if you need it. Make the changes so that you can live instead of just survive, because life is too short to live your whole life just surviving. Do fun things, go out, hang out with the people who you love the most, and don't let your body image, don't let what social media has to say, don't let those things steal the joy from you, because I let them steal the joy from me, and it's not worth it. I can tell you it's not worth it. And with asking for help, the encouragement, and staying consistent in my recovery from this honestly deadly disease, there are so many people who die from eating disorders, but I overcame it. And with that, I found joy and I found peace, and I had the energy to then go work out and run and do what I love, but in a much better way. My love for running and working out never changed. Even in the midst of my eating disorder, I still loved to run and work out, and that was something that was important to me. It's just, you need balance. And that's with everything in life. Everything in your life needs balance. Too much of anything can be bad. And so with recovering from my eating disorder, I gained that balance again. And I could run further and better than I ever could before. Because if you have an eating disorder or you're under fueling, there's a point where it's too far and your body will break. But when you are eating enough and you are fueling yourself, your body can go so far beyond those limits. Your body can go so much farther than it can when you're not eating, right? When you're fueling yourself, you are so much more capable of doing hard things. And I've found that I have been out of that eating disorder trap for multiple years now, and I've been able to run really big races, and I've been able to push my body so much harder, but I still have the energy to do other things, because I found that my whole life is not these sports. My whole life is not my body image. And I think a verse in the Bible that has just been so important for me is Matthew 6:25. And it says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes?" And that verse is just so true, and it changed my life, honestly, because the body we're living in is only temporary. The ultimate goal of our lives is to go meet our Father in heaven. And we put so much weight on our bodies on earth, but really that's not who we are. When we're going up to heaven, God doesn't say, step on a scale. If you're this big, you're allowed in. If you're this big, you're not. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, oh, you didn't run this time in the mile or in the 5K. Nope, you're not invited in. God doesn't look at those things. Our body is merely a vessel to spread the gospel to others. It's nothing more than that. Our body is a vessel. And with that, we want to take care of it. We want to fuel our bodies so that we have the energy to be a vessel and to share with others what the Lord has done for us. But what we look like is the least important thing about us. It's the least interesting thing about us, And if someone is going to judge you for how you look, or your weight, or how fast you run, how good you are at your sport, then they're not focusing on the most important things. Because the most important thing in your life and about you is the person you are, what you believe in, the things that you put your time into. Those are what is important in your life, not what you look like. And it's been so freeing for me to see that concept in my own life, and also to see how much more the people around me enjoy being around me now that I'm eating more. And, I'm happy, because when you're not eating and you're just caught up in the stress of life, you're not enjoyable to be around. That's just the truth of it. You are miserable. and it makes other people miserable to be around you. But when you have this joy for life again and you have the energy, people enjoy being around you. And I've seen that in my life. I see that my friends want to hang out with me and my family wants to hang out with me. And it's amazing to be on the other side of something so painful and so distorting. It's crazy how our brains can convince us that we aren't good enough and we need to be someone different when we've been good enough all along. The moment you were born, you were good enough for God. He doesn't need anything else from you. He created you exactly as you were meant to be, and he doesn't need all of these worldly things. He wants your soul, and that's it. Your appearance, your physical belongings, your stature are not important to him. The world has different desires than God does. And when we base our lives off of what God wants rather than what the world wants, our lives get a whole lot brighter. And I know in my own life it has. And now I'm able to live this life that honors God, but it's also just so much more enjoyable. I love my life and I value it, and I don't ever want to go back. And at the end of this month, I'm going to run a Ragnar race with my dad, and that'll be about a half marathon total over 3 different runs. And if you don't know what a Ragnar is, I encourage you to search it up. I've done one before, and it's absolutely amazing, and I'm so excited. But one of those runs is going to be 7 miles, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to have fun, and I'm going to love it. But ultimately, my past self wouldn't have even been able to go that far because I didn't have the energy. And the little things like that are what keep me going every day. And our brains hurt us sometimes, and our brains can convince us that we need to go back to that place. And I have those thoughts, and they come up from time to time. But I've learned to say, no, I know life on that side and I know life on this side. And being on the other side of an eating disorder is so much better. It's so much better. It's so much more freeing, and I will never go back. And my hope for you guys today, if you have gone through an eating disorder, I just truly hope that you find peace in who you are, not only physically, but on the inside. And if you are currently going through an eating disorder, I wish you the best. And I just encourage you to ask for help if you need it. I promise you that people will support you more than you think. People love you, and it's so much easier to recover from something when you have people encouraging you and supporting you. It's very hard to do it on your own. And I just hope that you guys can all find that joy in your life. And I hope when you find that, you're able to do your sport, whatever that is, or working out or hanging out with friends. And I hope you're able to do it with so much energy and love for life. With that being said, I think that's all. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about my journey, and I hope you guys, can have a story for your own journey as well. I hope that, you guys hear me when I say that you are worth more than your body, and I hope you keep that on your mind on the days where it's harder to remember that. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, please follow, share it to friends, family who you think would enjoy it as well. Next week, I have a very important episode, and I'm so excited to share that with you guys. And I'll see you guys next time. That's the scoop.